Welcome back to Firewatch FC. It's been a really long time, but I'm finally back after my wedding, and I'm ready to talk to you guys about Chicago Fire. Let's get started. You're watching Firewatch FC. The Chicago Fire went up against Charlotte FC and lost 1-0 at home. And that's kind of been a running trend. See, the Chicago Fire hasn't won a single game in the last 6 matches. Their last win was against Houston Dynamo, and that was on April 6th. According to statistics, the Chicago Fire actually did pretty okay against Charlotte FC. Chicago Fire had 62% ball possession. They had a higher expected goal than their opponents, which was 0.8. They also had 13 shots. 4 of them were on target. But statistics don't win games. Goals do. And Charlotte FC was able to squeak one in after a foul by Turan caused a free kick right at the edge of the penalty box. And of course, it doesn't matter how good Brady is, he was fully stretched, he could not get to the ball in time with a free kick that close to the goal. So after a 0-1 loss at home, it's time for me to give you my takeaways of the match. And you guys know how this goes already. It's going to be green boxes for good performances and red boxes for bad ones. And today, we're going to start with the most obvious red box I could possibly give. And that's going to be to the head coach, Frank Lopez. At this point, Frank Lopez is adamant on leaving a legacy of being a coach that loses more than he wins. Since he was named interim head coach back in May 2023, he has won just 13 games, drawn 9 games, and lost 20 games. I don't know if you guys know this, but that's pretty bad. And at this point, there's no real statistic that you can kind of shine a light on to be like, hey, things are getting better. Because they're really not. It doesn't matter if the Chicago Fire play at home or away. It doesn't matter if they have schedule congestion or not. There isn't a single situation where the Chicago Fire looks good at all this season. It's objectively just bad. And it gets even worse when you look at the table for the Eastern Conference. The Chicago Fire currently sits at 14th place, just one away from bottom of the table. But if you start paying attention to the other numbers on the table, it gets much worse. Currently, New England is sitting bottom of the table with 7 points. Chicago Fire has 10 points. Only 3 points separate the two teams. But if you look at the games played, the Chicago Fire has played 13 games. New England Revolution has only played 11. There's a very real chance that Chicago Fire is already in last place. Once New England Revolution catches up in matches played, they might have enough points to send us to the bottom of the table. That's really bad. Now I want you guys to remember that the Chicago Fire actually fired their previous coach, Ezra Hendrickson, with better results. At the time of his firing, the Chicago Fire had a record of 2 wins, 3 losses, and 5 draws. Sure, they had the same amount of wins, but the amount of losses that Frank Lopez has gathered is staggering. I want you guys to keep in mind that Ezra Hendrickson had a terrible roster in his hands. Sure, he had Shaqiri, he had Guti, but after that, everyone else was pretty bad. He had to deal with Kasper Schmeichel missing wide open goals, Jairo Torres being broken the entire season, Jimenez, Herbers, and Navarro all racking up red cards, and even then, Ezra Hendrickson, although he was losing his games, the Chicago Fire were at least scoring goals during this time. Unlike today, where we only have 1 goal for the last 5 games. So, for those reasons and more, Frank Lopez, you're going to get a red box. That's just how it is. You're probably a good person, but you're a terrible coach. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You're really bad. And that's the only box that I plan on giving today. It would be completely unfair for me to rate the players when they have a coach that clearly isn't good enough. I trust these players. I trust their ability to win games. And if they just had a better coach, this team would be anywhere from 7th to 4th place in the standings. But we have Frank Lopez. So with him in charge, this team is not going to be performing at all whatsoever. You know, when they fired Ezra Hendrickson last year, I was incredibly confused as to why. Sure, the performances weren't amazing, but at that point, I thought that the results were just as much on the players as it was on the coach. And what was even more puzzling at the time was that they hired Frank Lopez as an interim head coach to save the season. And when he failed to reach the playoffs, they hired him again for the 2024 season. I have no idea what's going on. And I have to imagine that the front office knows that this is a bit of a train wreck. There's absolutely no statistic out here that makes Frank Lopez look like a proper coach. So I have to imagine that Frank Lopez's time as head coach of the Chicago Fire is coming to an end. The question is, when? My best guess is that if they haven't fired him in the first 10 games of the match, then they're just gonna wait until the summer transfer window. And that's when they'll make their move. There has to be another head coach lined up and ready to go, but he's still in contract with another team or something. That is the only reason I can think of why Frank Lopez is still head coach for the Chicago Fire. And if that's the case, I'm okay with it. If it's gonna take you until the summer to get a proper coach, then yeah, I'm up for it. Let's do that. And one thing about Joe Mansueto is that he's happy to spend for the team if he thinks it's gonna make a difference. And the biggest difference you can make is gonna be on that head coach. So I'm imagining that he's gonna get a proper coach this time. There's no way that he's gonna fumble this one. He's gonna use his deep pockets to get us someone crazy. At least that's my hope. Anyway, 97 till forever.